It's no news to us that the Philippines has been drowning for so many years now. Recent issues have emerged along with the rise in water levels. And if we follow the flow, it leads us to corruption. Are we born greedy, or is it taught? Oxford Languages defines greed as an intense and selfish desire for something, especially for wealth, power, or food. For ancient Greeks, they call it pleonexia, which means the insatiable desire for more. It's definitely not a new concept because even philosophers like Aristotle warned that it can destroy justice and community. Erich Fromm, a social psychologist and psychoanalyst, once said that greed is a bottomless pit which exhausts a person in an endless effort to satisfy the need without ever reaching satisfaction. At the same time, others ask the question whether greed is good or bad. The bottom line is, until now, there's still considerable talk about greed itself. If we look at the nature of greed, it starts from the very beginning, evolution. Evolutionary psychologists think that greed might have developed as a survival tactic, which makes sense because back in the day, gathering up resources like food, tools, and status probably helped people stay alive and procreate. They might have exercised the idea that the more you have, the longer you and your family will survive. And this is not far from what we have today. Genetic studies found that the DRD2 and COMT genes are involved in our dopamine regulation. Results show that variants of these genes have been linked to impulsive behaviors and the reward sensitivity of our brains. In short, they could contribute to us being reward-driven, and in some contexts, even what we refer to as greedy today. Everyone has the DRD2 and the COMT genes. However, there are variants and they differ between people. Some variants make others more reward sensitive and others less so. In neuroscience studies, they tell us that people with more activity in areas of the brain like the nucleus accumbens, which is all about reward, tend to make more selfish or risky choices. A study from 2014 looked at whether greed could influence risky choices, and they measured brain activities using EEG while people played a money gambling game. Participants in this research filled out a greed questionnaire that measured how strongly they agreed with statements like, "I can't get enough of the things I want," or "I always want more." They also manipulated situations during the task that could, quote-unquote, activate greed, like presenting opportunities to win bigger rewards or to see if situational triggers increase greedy behavior on top of personality. They found that people with higher trait greed consistently chose riskier options in the gambling task. They were more willing to gamble for a bigger payout, even when it meant a higher chance of losing. In short, personality plus situation together equals to more risk. Normally, when people lose, the brain shows a strong error signal. This is called the feedback-related negativity, FRN. It's like the brain's way of saying that we made a mistake and we need to remember this next time. Participants who scored higher in greed showed a reduced FRN difference between good and bad outcomes. This suggests that they didn't process losses strongly compared to how others did. In other words, they may struggle to learn from mistakes or negative feedback. A recent study in 2024 wanted to understand what personal and social traits make people more likely to engage in corrupt behavior. They focus on attitudes towards money and the big three, the dark triad personality traits like Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. They found that people who scored higher on Machiavellianism were more likely to manipulate others for money. Narcissists often use wealth to boost their self-esteem, and psychopaths were more likely to make reckless financial choices and exploit others. This is because of low empathy and risk-taking. Overall, these dark triad traits, partnered with attitudes like greed or anxiety about money, predicted a higher likelihood of corrupt behavior. Don't get me wrong though, greed is still too complex. For instance, there's no single greed gene or straightforward link to psychological traits. We still need to cover and unpack opportunities, social factors, and cultural or economic context, the whole nurture of greed. If we go back to our childhood environments, experts say that they shape our relationship with resources. One 2018 study suggests that kids who grew up in harsh or unpredictable households tend to become adults who adopt a fast life strategy, meaning that they may prioritize immediate rewards over long-term planning and may have materialistic attitudes. They may also show behavioral outcomes like impulsivity, risk-taking, hoarding, or resource grabbing due to scarcity. In a study using GUN framework, which stands for greed, opportunity, need, and exposure, researchers interviewed individuals in Indonesia. Interestingly, the study found that greed wasn't the main motive for corruption, but rather opportunity and need. If we look at sociology, the competition, consumerism, hustle and bustle, as well as our other favorite C word, capitalism, they are often viewed as things that feed into greed. Researchers found that in Nigeria, a lot of construction contractors let greed and self-interest drive them to act corruptly. The study pointed out several ways that these motivators push them towards unethical practices. Now, talking about Otto Finchel and John Maynard Keynes, they suggest that greed is something that comes from within us. At the same time, it is also shaped by the world around us. It taps into basic psychological needs like wanting to feel good about ourselves or having power, and these feelings get more intense because of social values. In many old trading societies, getting rich wasn't thought of as being greedy, but more like a responsibility to your family, or again, having more resources meant better security. For instance, in parts of Mesopotamia and Egypt, being smart with resources and gathering goods was seen as a way to ensure survival and show respect to the gods, instead of being considered morally wrong. This is quite connected to the Confucian Pragmatism. While Confucianism generally condemns selfish greed, it also recognizes that wanting to make money is totally normal and okay, as long as it's done in a good way, gained honorably, and helps keep family and community in harmony. In this sense, greed is just seen as ambition mixed with responsibility. Today we have Objectivism through Ayn Rand's philosophy. Rand argued that self-interest and rational pursuit of wealth are moral virtues, What many would call greed, she rebranded as simply rational self-interest. It suggests that society benefits when individuals maximize their own success without guilt. So, now what? Are we born greedy? Well, it's quite obvious greed is very much the same as other things. Like being good or evil, it is best understood when considering the gray area, not just something we are born with or something that's only taught to us. It comes from a mix of our biology and the world around us. It most likely evolved to help us survive, but how we experience and how we act on it can really depend on things like the way we were raised, cultural values, traits, our financial situations, needs, opportunities, like billions and billions of taxpayers' money just sitting there, begging to be spent on luxurious family travels, confidential funds to publish a 16-page book, and hopefully flood control. It's heartbreaking, it's sickening, and enraging with what is going on, not just in my country but also in others. I hope we can encourage each other to speak, participate, and keep the issues afloat. And the most important thing is we should keep educating ourselves too, because we are the ones who get impacted and robbed the most, yet we are the ones who put these people where they are now.